The title of the paper is Family Educators, Technology Use, and Factors Influencing Technology Acceptance Attitudes. I want to, this was a huge honor. It was also a huge surprise, actually a surprise twice. The way this works is first you get the award for the best area, and then you hear that you get this outstanding thing, and it's just like fabulous. So of course I need to recognize my co-author, Heeran Kim. Heeran is one of my former doctoral students and is at the Suknoon Women's University in Seoul, South Korea. And I'd especially like to thank the editor and the reviewers of the journal, and to FCS. I do believe that recognizing this particular research recognizes the need for more research on our use of technology in our practice. This is particularly true in areas where our research is really lacking, and specifically with non-formal family educators, which is the subject of this paper. At the University of Minnesota, I direct a graduate program that prepares parenting educators in Minnesota licensed parenting educators. And those non-formal professionals, like others who work in community-based contexts, work with adults who are not seeking a formal degree, but are seeking learning for enrichment and sometimes for improvement. But they're often ignored in research, and especially in technology research, where most of the focus is on formal classroom-based learning and teaching. So to fill that gap, I looked to that more significant literature to identify theory and research methods to apply to non-formal family educators. A well-known theoretical foundation is the technology acceptance model by Davis. This model identifies technology use as influenced by attitudes, and attitudes towards technology influenced and shaped by an individual's perceived effectiveness or comfort with using technology, and their perceived usefulness of technology. The technology acceptance model is actually an outgrowth of the theory of recent action. In 2008, a study by Teo, Lee, and Chai with pre-service teachers enhanced the model by adding two contextual variables: subjective norms and facilitating conditions. In short, this adapted model suggests that if use and attitudes towards technology are shaped by an individual's perceived effectiveness and the perceived usefulness of technology, effectiveness and the sense that technology is useful are likely shaped by A, association with others who use technology and validate it as useful, and B, the availability of training and access to technology. Teo et al. Also used an 18-item scale to assess technology attitudes and influences, then did factor analysis to identify those 5 constructs: perceived effectiveness, perceived usefulness, facilitating conditions, subjective norms, and the dependent variable technology attitudes. This study then, based on the adapted technology acceptance model, posed 9 hypotheses, visual aid, 9 hypotheses of direct and indirect variable relationship influences on technology acceptance in family education professionals. Data for the study was collected from surveys that were gathered at family professional events such as this across the country. Along with the attitude items, the survey included data on technology use as well as demographic items. Data from 210 professionals who work with adults in non-formal education settings were in the study. Structural equation modeling was employed to confirm the factors and to test the pathways. Frequency analysis on the technology use at work and personally suggested that selection for work speaks to specific instructional needs, such as the more frequent use of PowerPoint software. Yet they also indicate that use of those technologies may be those that are easily accessible, software that are on most office computers, and those that are very familiar. We found as frequently they used internet searching for work as they did for personal use, which would give them more practice with it. Yet the use of social media for work was particularly infrequent. Anecdotally, I've talked with a number of educators who say that their school districts and their institutions block social media, or they have provided no guidelines on how to use social media in practice. With regard to the hypothesis and the model, following SEM protocol, first the model fit was tested, and then the measurement model tested the strengths of the variable relationships. Consistent with other studies predicting technology attitudes, this study confirmed that the acceptance of technology among family educators was strongly related to the perception that technology is useful to practice and is easy to use. Perceived usefulness also is strongly related to ease of use. If an instructor or if an educator feels comfortable using technology, they're more likely to find that it's useful for their work. The study also validated Teo et al.'s adapted technology acceptance model with non-formal family educators, indicating that context influences the role of training and the availability of devices, and being with others who value technology positively affected attitudes and likely their use. The path from facilitating conditions to attitudes was strong, but only indirectly through perceived effectiveness. In other words, providing training can influence attitudes, but only if professionals feel that that training helps them feel more comfortable using technology. And subjective norms had a direct and positive influence on attitudes, even more so than Teo et al. Found with pre-service teachers. Working in a culture that values technology as felt in expressions by peers and in performance standards by the field can positively influence attitudes by sending very implicit and reinforced messages. Clearly, the study is limited in its sampling and its ability to generalize, and it does compel us to add use to the variable. I will say, though, that research, I do a lot of research related to technology use, and we're still very, very early understanding what effective use in practice is. On the whole, though, this current study does send a very clear message that context of support matter greatly to encourage technology attitudes and use in the non-formal family education.